Hello, this is Pharaoh Vincent. And I apologize for the delay in videos. I got sick and lost my voice. But I wanted to make some content today, and specifically, I wanted to cue up my microphone and make a bit of a complaint. I am a person all about stories, and if you've seen any of my content on Final Fantasy 16, which Lord knows I need to finish that, and a bunch of other things, you will know that I do like a good story. And unfortunately, in Watcher of Realms, the story is not only forgetful, but honestly disjointed and stunted. And specifically, it starts with the main issue of the beginning of the game, right? You cannot see the opening cutscene unless you've made a brand new account. And even the cutscenes that are in the game still don't always make a lot of sense without that context. I do plan on going back through and trying to fix the story, but in the meantime, I just want to tell you a little bit about the general arcs. As you start the game, you find out you are the Commander Aryan. That looks a lot like this particular avatar. That's why I've chosen it today, just to pay homage to the commander that you apparently are. Now, that I say apparently because I don't know much about Aryan in general. You really don't become a fleshed out character, that's for sure. But then from there, you get brought back to life by the very oracle who's meaning to kill you and doesn't want you to come back to life. Like, the oracle is the person who is, you know, pulling you back from the boat, right? You're going across what I can only assume is the River Styx. That's the best thing that I've got for it, actually. And then from there, you're brought back to Tia, and you encounter Voltus and Rex and Camille and Cutter and all these other folks, Liam, right? You encounter them along your way as free heroes that you get, and as you go through it, you gain slight tidbits of information that honestly are at best forgettable, right? And at worst, they are irrelevant. Like, I don't know that it really matters much. Um, and a large part of why I've focused in on the story of the game is because the epilogue itself, it doesn't make sense, right? As an epilogue to the story, it doesn't cover anything, right? Like, you don't understand why Soleil is where she is. And all of the fights before that aren't really making a lot of sense either. You stop Soleil here, right? Well, more specifically, you stop the scholar. Um, and so, like, there's little bits of various pieces of this story that don't fully make sense. So I will go back through it. I'm gonna try to piece this thing back together. Of course, if you, my dear viewer, are kind of a lore buff for this game, please feel free to comment down below. I'd love to connect with you. Because the side note of all of this really came up when I was reading through Heroes. And some Heroes' stories don't really make a lot of sense. I will pick on Silas. The only way to get to the story is through the gallery, and the stories themselves don't always make sense, right? As you're coming down through here, you kind of get into these sections like, with the dragon ravaging their homeland, the elves look to their leader, Silas, now known as the Blind King, for answers. And that now known as the Blind King, I would think, is in reference to during the time that the dragon is ravaging their homeland, but it's not. It's actually in reference to now, as in now today, because they tell you that he plucked his eyes out as a sacrifice to gain the jagged bow, this one, and that's kind of the point. Like it's he. This is why he's the blind king, is he gave up his sight in order to make this bow. And so as you read through some of these, it doesn't always make a lot of sense. I don't like all of the different heroes' stories. And a lot of heroes have a story that you really don't get to know very much. Also, like why Silas is a member of the Starpiercers and not Vierna, it doesn't always make sense either. Yes, I know they're mostly marksmen from a mechanical standpoint, right? There's no mages in this faction at all. But why is Silas not a member of the Cursed Cult is beyond me too, other than the fact that I know that these are in opposition, right? I figured that out by looking at other heroes, but like, why is Vierna in the Cursed Cult if that is opposed to the Starpiercers where her husband lives? Yeah, I don't fully understand. And we're going to run into this a lot with a few different heroes, right? Carnelian and Durza are going to be some that I'm going to really key in on, right? I'm looking at why the dual faction people are dual faction and why some of them aren't. It comes down into like the arbiters too, right? You get a little piece of the collective, and yet Gon is not a member of the collective, but he's a member of the chaotic faction, but the chaotic faction was created by the collective. So why is he a lord in this faction? I know Valderon comes from the collective because he was a paladin of it. Okay, cool, great, that makes sense. So is Valderon an older lord of this faction? I don't actually know. Do their paths cross? Does Valderon recruit Gon into the the Chaos Dominion? I do not know. And so it's those kinds of things that I look at and I really want to know more about. And so there's a lot of this interplay that doesn't fully get addressed. And I'm not expecting the developers to fully know this, but I do. Well, sorry, I'm not expecting the developers to have to explain every single decision, but I would love it if there was a throughput. If there's a reason why these heroes are here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, right? So there's so many factions that are at odds ends, but there's some folks who go between them that don't always make sense to why. I love Nero for this because I have zero clue why Nero is not in Infernal, right? He's halfway into Watchguard, but he is literally a master of fire spells, and yet he's not an Infernal Roar, right? He's not an Infernal Blast hero, whereas his daughter is, and she's also a goddess later on, a deity down the line after she ascends in the White Tower, apparently. Like, there's so much detail that we all don't know, and so it'd be great to figure some of this out. So that is my plan. I am going to do a series on the lore, the story, and kind of how to fix some of this. I do want to piece these things together because that is something that is near and dear to my heart. I've been telling stories for 24 years now at this point. Actually, close to 25 years on and off. I, do run games of, back in the day, Dungeons and Dragons. Nowadays, I prefer Pathfinder. So shout out to my Pathfinder folks. But these stories, they matter to me at least. And I feel like a big part of the player base would really enjoy to watch some of this stuff themselves. And so, I hope that everyone will like and subscribe to catch these updates. It's going to take me a long time. There's 201 heroes and they come out very, very rapidly. And this is something that requires me to write down details that link characters together, right? I need to know that, Oh, I clicked on the wrong section. Um, Mild complaint tangent. Why is there no story button here? There's no way to get to the story from this screen. You have to go to the gallery. Come on, Moonton. If you care about the story of these characters, fix it. But things like this, where Alistair is talking about um, specifically Praetus, but Alistair, I believe, also talks about Ingrid, right? Oh no, sorry, Thalon talks about Ingrid, right? And having these throughput characters where I know where people are talking, right? Thalon's also talking about, you know, Alistair, and when you go to Thalon, rogue at a campfire. It's you know why, why? You really start to figure these things out, right? Why are the arbiters, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of noun soup that doesn't ever get explained, to the best of my knowledge. Um, it comes down to like the Roaring Canyon. Okay, cool. Where is that? Is that somewhere we've been to? Is that somewhere that we're going to at some point? Like when you go through the campaign, you don't really know much about it, right? Like this is the Mortius Desert, so that's not the Roaring Canyon, right? And so on. You can kind of click on some of these various places, but these are all in the desert, so that's not a canyon. These right here are, you know, underground. Okay, so now we're going underground, and then you can kind of click to here, right? Okay, now we're going into the jungles with the Scalekin, right? Okay, so now we're gonna go into this area, and hey, guess what? We're still in the jungles, but now it's a different kind of jungle, I guess. Cool. Um, hey, we're still in the jungle for like 3 maps in a row, and then it's like, all right, yeah, cool. Now we're over here, and we're dealing with some villagers in plains. It looks like, so that's probably not it. All right, cool. Now we're going through, and it's still the village, but it's darker. and and when we get to chapter 8, we're dealing with this oceany kind of thing. And why is this the same? Is this the same? Like, there's so many of these maps that kind of start off in similar areas, and yet we're going towards this mountain of doom. But then we get to this map, and it's not starting with the mountain. It's all the way back to the beginning, actually. This is the very first map, right? Like, chapter 9's map and chapter 1's map are the same map. Like, why? Literally. Literally the same map, right? We've got Vortex, we've got Tree, we've got Weird Looking Dude, right? And then we've got Vortex, we got Tree, we got Weird Looking Dude. Like, it's the exact same map between chapter 1 and chapter 9, but like, now we're at the White Tower here. You can tell that somebody didn't really think this through as they added things in. It was done rather quickly. And I mean, we have the same beginning in this one, right? So chapter 9 part 2 is the same here, where we're going through parts of the White Tower, I guess. But like, wow, you know? And of course, we talk about like the boss, right? Hardius the Forbidden Scholar, and the Sage Stone, and all these other things, and it's all to get to the Sage, and I get that, but then like, how do we get from there to Soleil being locked into the White Tower at the end? I don't know. Right? Okay. So that's my complaint. The story doesn't make sense. There's a lot of noun soup, and quite frankly, it doesn't always connect. It's not cohesive. So I'm going to do my best to untangle this web and figure some information out. So please like and subscribe. I know I got on a bit of a tangent, but you can, I'm sure, understand why now at this point and where I'm going with this. So please support the channel. It gives me the time to do this in the space, and this is going to take a while. So I do want to kind of set the expectation now. This isn't going to be something that's done in a week or two. It's going to take a while. So if you are a lore buff for this game and you want to dig into this with me, please feel free to do so. Connect with me in the comments down below, and I would gladly take any help that you have. Let's unravel the mystery and let's make a better story. And at the end of this, maybe Moonton can, work with us and create a better, more in-depth understanding of the game so that when new heroes come out, it makes sense. Because there's heroes that they could make from the stories that they have. There are people that can come in and be parts of various people's backgrounds, and it could be fun and enjoyable. But we need to have a little bit of an investment in it. Because ultimately, as a community, no one's creating content where they're pulling up a brand new hero and clicking on this button. That doesn't happen. We discuss information here. We discuss information here. Mechanics. We discuss the mechanics of a hero. But we don't talk about their story. And that's a travesty. In a hero collection game, it would be far more lucrative for Moonton if we cared about the hero. If we cared about their story. Because it's one thing to say, I have Ingrid. And she slaps, and she's so great in all of this content, and oh my god. But it is another thing entirely to say, I have Ingrid, the Regalius Excelsa, and understand what that means. Because it's in here. But why? And what is this about? Most people couldn't describe. So, I appreciate your time. If you've made it to this far, I, cannot thank you enough. And I will see you on the next one.